My family tricked me with my $68K wedding. I paid them $34K while my sister got $400,000. But when they tried to fix it with $100K, I cashed the check and blocked them forever. I'm 28 years old. I work as a software engineer, and 3 weeks ago, I mobile deposited my parents' check before they could cancel it. And I don't regret it one bit. I know that sounds cold, but when you read the whole story, you're going to understand why I did it. I mean, I hope you understand. Because basically, my entire family is calling me selfish and ungrateful. But honestly, I think I did the right thing for the first time in my life with them. I guess I should start from the beginning so it makes sense. I grew up with my sister, Natalie, who's 4 years older than me, and for as long as I can remember, she was always the favorite. And when I say favorite, I don't mean that kind of subtle favoritism everyone imagines in their head. No, I'm talking about something so obvious that even the neighbors noticed it. Natalie was brilliant, perfect, the golden child who could do no wrong. I was Ashley, the other daughter. It's not like my parents were cruel to me or anything. The truth is, they never physically mistreated me or anything like that, but there was a huge difference in how they treated us, and it showed in absolutely everything. For example, when Natalie turned 16, they bought her a new car, like a 2012 Honda Accord that at the time cost like $22,000, and they threw her this huge party at an event hall. When I turned 16, they gave me $500 and told me to save up to buy my own car because I needed to learn to be responsible. Natalie went to a private university, and my parents paid for everything. Literally everything. Including her apartment, her new car at college, her spring break trips. I went to a state university on scholarships and worked 30 hours a week at Starbucks to pay my rent. And the crazy thing is that at the time, I didn't think much about it. I mean, I had completely normalized the situation and thought that maybe Natalie deserved more because she was better than me at everything. I moved out of the house. At 16, basically. Not because they kicked me out or anything, but because I got a part-time job and preferred to rent a room with a friend than keep living in that house where I always felt invisible. My parents didn't even try to convince me to stay, honestly. My mom just said something like, "Well, if you think you're ready to be independent, go ahead." And that was it. Natalie kept living with them until she left for college at 18. So anyway, the years passed and I continued my life, finished my degree, got a good job in tech, making good money, and I met Joshua when I was 25. Joshua is, I don't know how to describe it without sounding cheesy, but he's literally the most decent and honest person I know. He works as a middle school teacher, makes a normal salary, and from day one, he always treated me like I was the most important person in the world, Like with him, I never felt like I was the secondary option or that I had to work 3 times as hard to deserve attention. And he just loved me. Period. We got engaged 2 years ago, when I was 26, and started planning a simple wedding. The truth is, Joshua and I didn't want anything extravagant. We were thinking something intimate with like 80 people max and a budget of about $36,000 that we were going to pay for together. I had saved like $20,000 and Joshua had about $16,000 saved up, so we were good. We told my parents about our engagement and they seemed happy. They came to dinner, got to know Joshua better. Everything seemed normal. But this is where the story gets interesting, because like a month after our engagement, Natalie announced she was also getting married. She'd been dating her boyfriend for like a year and a half, I think. And my parents basically went crazy with happiness. They had this huge family dinner, invited all the aunts and uncles and cousins, bought expensive champagne, the whole thing. And then, like 2 weeks after that announcement, my parents gave Natalie $400,000 to buy a house. $400,000. When I found out, I almost fell out of my chair. My mom told me casually over the phone, like, "Oh yeah, we gave your sister a little gift so she could start her marriage off right," as if she'd just given her a toaster and not literally the price of a house. And there I was, processing that information, because $400,000 is an absurd amount of money. And my brain was trying to understand how my parents could have that amount saved when they always told me they couldn't help me with college because money was tight. Joshua saw my face when I hung up the phone, and he knew immediately something was wrong. I told him, and he just hugged me and said, "Look, we're fine. We don't need anything from them. Let's do our wedding like we planned it, and it's going to be perfect." And he was right. I mean, we were fine financially, We made good money together. We didn't need help from anyone. But like a week later, my dad called me and said he wanted to talk to me. We went to lunch and basically he told me that he and my mom wanted to pay for my entire wedding, that I didn't have to worry about anything, that they would take care of everything. And I was like, really? Because honestly, I never expected that from them. I asked him if he was sure and he said yes, that they wanted to do this for me, that I was their daughter and they felt bad about not being able to help me as much as they would have liked when I was younger. His eyes even filled with tears when he said it, and I thought, wow, maybe they're finally trying to make up for everything. Joshua wasn't so convinced. He told me, "Are you sure this is a good idea? What if it comes with strings attached?" But I wanted to believe that my parents were finally seeing me. You know? I wanted to believe that after all these years they had reflected and wanted to fix things, so I accepted. I told them yes, that I really appreciated their offer, and we started planning the wedding with them involved. And the truth is, the next few months were amazing. My parents seemed genuinely excited. My mom went with me to try on dresses. My dad met with the event planner. They paid all the deposits and bills as they came. We chose a beautiful venue, hired an incredible photographer. The food was from a boutique caterer that cost like $85 per person. Everything was perfect, better than what Joshua and I had originally planned. The final budget ended up being like $68,000 because my parents kept adding things, like a premium bar, more expensive flowers, a better DJ. I kept asking them, "Are you sure? Isn't it too much?" And they'd say, "Don't worry, honey. We want it to be special." The wedding day was, no exaggeration, the most perfect day of my life. Everything went well. My parents were there smiling. My dad walked me down the aisle and cried. My mom hugged me and told me I looked beautiful. Natalie was my maid of honor and gave a nice speech. Joshua and I danced our first song, and I remember thinking, this is it. I finally have the family I always wanted. They finally accept me and love me as I am. It was like all the years of feeling less important had been erased in a single day. We went on our honeymoon to Costa Rica for a week, and it was magical. Everything was perfect. We got back to our apartment on a Sunday afternoon, still floating in that post-wedding happiness bubble, and I checked the mail that had piled up, and there it was, a thick envelope from my parents. I opened it thinking maybe it was a sentimental letter or wedding photos or something. It was an invoice. An itemized invoice of every single expense. From the wedding. Venue, $18,000. Catering, $6,800. Flowers, $3,200. DJ, $2,100. Literally everything was there, even the $145 for the personalized napkins. The total was $34,445.89, and at the bottom it said, "Payment expected within 30 days." I stood there, staring at the paper, unable to process what I was seeing. Joshua came over, read over my shoulder, and said, "What the fuck is this?" We read the entire invoice like 3 times because we couldn't believe it was real. There was no note, no explanation, just the invoice with a due date. I called my mom immediately, like my hands were shaking as I dialed. And when she answered, I asked her what this was, why they had sent me an invoice. And she, with the most casual voice in the world, told me, "Well, obviously, we need you to pay us back, Ashley. You didn't think we were going to pay for your wedding after giving your sister $400,000, did you?" We had to be fair. Fair. That word kept bouncing around in my head. I said, "Mom, you guys offered to pay. You never mentioned it was a loan. You never said anything about paying it back." And she just responded, "Well, we assumed you'd understand this was fair, considering what we gave Natalie. Don't be dramatic." And she hung up. She literally hung up the phone. Joshua was furious. More furious than I'd ever seen him. He wanted to go to my parents' house and yell at them, but I was like in shock. I couldn't even cry. I just felt completely empty. We didn't sleep that night. We stayed up talking about what to do. Technically, we had the money. I mean, Joshua and I together make good money, and we had enough savings to pay the invoice without ending up on the street. But that wasn't the point. The point was, they had lied to us. They had manipulated us. They had turned the happiest day of my life into a transaction. I spent the next 2 days crying, not eating, unable to go to work. Joshua had to call in and say I was sick. And then, I don't know, something in me changed. I got up on Wednesday morning and told Joshua, I'm going to pay them. I'm going to give them every cent they're asking for, and then I'm never going to talk to them again. He asked me if I was sure, and I told him yes, that I needed to close this chapter of my life once and for all. I withdrew all the money I needed from our savings accounts, wrote a check for $34,445.89, and wrote a letter. It wasn't long, like 2 paragraphs, but basically it said, here's your money, every cent. I hope it was worth destroying your relationship with your daughter over this. Don't contact me again. I put everything in an envelope, sent it certified mail so they'd have to sign for it, and blocked my parents' numbers on my phone. I also blocked Natalie because I knew she'd be on their side. She always was. 2 days later, the messages started. Aunts, uncles, cousins, everyone started texting and calling me saying I was an ungrateful daughter, that my parents had done so much for me and I was repaying them like this, that I was selfish, that how dare I cut contact over something as silly as money. My parents had clearly told them their version of the story, where they were the victims and I was the bad guy. I blocked almost everyone, except for a few cousins I actually had a good relationship with and who, when I explained my side, told me they understood. A week later, my mom sent me an email, because I had blocked her number, but not her email yet. The email said that everything had been a life lesson, that they never actually expected me to pay them back, that it was a test to see if I had matured and understood the value of money, and that since I had passed the test by paying them, now they wanted to give me $100,000 as a real wedding gift. $100,000. And that I just had to go to their house to pick up the check, and we could forget this whole misunderstanding. I read that email like 5 times. Joshua read it too. And we both came to the same conclusion. This was another manipulation. It was another way to have control over me, to make me come running back to them, to make me feel like I owed them something. But what they didn't know is that I had already changed. I was no longer the 6-year-old Ashley who accepted any crumb of attention gave me. I replied to the email with just one line. Thanks, but no. I don't need your money or your life lesson. And I closed that email account too. I thought that would be the end of it. But no, things got worse. Like 3 days later, Natalie showed up at my apartment, knocking on the door and yelling for me to open it. I was alone because Joshua was at work, and honestly, I got scared. She was yelling things like, "You're an ungrateful bitch. Mom and Dad are devastated. How can you do this to them? Open the damn door." I called the police and told them there was someone harassing me at my door. And when I told them it was my sister, they asked if I felt in danger, and I said yes. They sent a patrol car, and by the time they arrived, Natalie was already gone. But they made a report just in case. That night, Joshua and I talked seriously about maybe moving, changing our numbers, basically disappearing from my family's life. But then I got a call from a number I didn't know. Normally, I don't answer unknown numbers, but something made me answer. It was my uncle, my dad's brother, who I'd never been very close with, but who had always been kind to me. And he told me something that completely changed my perspective on everything. He told me that like 20 years ago, when he got married, my parents did exactly the same thing to him. They offered to pay for his wedding, he accepted, and then they sent him an invoice. My uncle paid them, but when he and his wife had financial problems years later and asked them for help with a loan, my parents told them no, that they had already helped them by paying for the wedding. My uncle cut contact with them for years, and only recently had they started talking again superficially. He told me, "Ashley, your dad does this because that's who he is. He uses money to control people, to test you, to keep you emotionally in debt to him. And the best thing you can do is exactly what you're doing. Get away." After talking to my uncle, everything clicked. This wasn't about the wedding. It never was. It was about power and control. It was about making sure I always felt like I owed them something, that I could never be truly independent from them. And the saddest part is that with Natalie, they don't need to do this because she's always been happy to be dependent on them, to follow their rules, to be the perfect daughter they wanted. Yesterday, my dad left me a voicemail because I blocked his new number, but not before he could leave the message. It said he wanted to talk to me, that things had gotten out of control, and could we meet to fix this? And you know what? I was ready to just delete it and move on with my life. But Joshua told me, maybe you should go, not to reconcile, but to really close this. to tell him to his face what you've never been able to tell him. So I agreed to meet with him, just him, at a public cafe. I went yesterday afternoon. My dad arrived with an envelope. And when he sat down, the first thing he did was put it on the table. He said, "Here's the check, the $100,000 plus the $34,000 you paid us. I want to give you all of this and start over." And I looked at him and asked, "Do you really think this is about money? Do you really think you can buy a relationship with me?" He started talking about how he just wanted to teach me important lessons, that he wanted to make sure I was independent and strong. And I interrupted him. I told him, "Dad, you made me independent when I was 16 years old and I preferred to live with a friend than stay in your house. You made me strong when I had to work 30 hours a week to pay for my college while you paid for everything for Natalie. I didn't need your life lesson. You'd already taught it to me thousands of times. What I needed was for you to love me the same as her, but I think that's never going to happen." And I pushed the envelope back toward him and told him, "Keep your money. I don't need it or want it." My dad tried to speak, but I was already getting up. I told him, "If someday you want to have a real relationship with me, one where there's no money or manipulation involved, you can try to contact me, but until then, please leave me alone." And I left the cafe without looking back. Now I'm here, in my apartment with Joshua, writing this because I needed to get it out of my system. My entire family probably thinks I'm a bitch. Natalie hasn't contacted me again, and my parents, I guess, are furious or confused or I don't know what. But the truth is that for the first time in my life, I feel free. I feel like I've cut a chain I didn't even know I was carrying. Joshua supports me completely. He tells me I did the right thing, and I believe him. I don't know if I'll ever reconcile with my family. Honestly, right now, I don't care. Maybe in a few years, when I have more emotional distance, I can try to have some kind of relationship with them, but right now, I need to focus on my life, on my marriage, on building my own family someday, with the values I choose, not the ones that were imposed on me. And that's enough for me, I guess. For now, at least.